Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for our privilege of coming together at this time. We pray for your Holy Spirit's leading and guidance as we discuss this important topic of proper diet. Bless us is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we are continuing on this series of proper diet, and for our students, I'd like you to turn to that portion of the lifestyle assessment form where we will be looking at some questions there. For everyone who's listening, these are questions that we would usually ask when we consult with someone. And so under the section of proper diet, there are questions where we would ask individuals to, satisfy and complete those questions. That would help us to have an idea about what the person is eating or not eating. What are some of the things that they're using within their diet that can contribute towards the sickness and disease that they are actually facing. And it helps us also to have that discussion to remove certain items and what are some things that they need to incorporate within their diet. So pay particular attention to the questions and the responses, what it is that we're looking for, why these questions are asked. Please remember too that at the end of our session, our lecture, we do have a Q&A session. So do write down your questions so you are able to get them answered at that time. So the first question on the proper diet. Oh, there we go. Do you eat any meat or flesh foods? What were the two reasons that flesh was permitted by God to eat? So you know that in the beginning, in the book of Genesis, we're told in Genesis 1:29 about grains, fruits, nuts. In Genesis 3:18, we're told of herbs of the field that was added to man's diet. So our original diet included the grains, the seeds, the nuts, the fruits, and then vegetables was added. But later on, we find that meat was added to the diet, and particularly after the flood, God permitted man to eat flesh food. And two major reasons for this. One, it was for emergency food, understanding that the flood destroyed all vegetation, and Noah had sufficient for himself and the animals within the ark. However, once they got through that flood experience, there was no food to replenish the supply they had. And so God permitted the flesh food to be eaten. And another reason, it was to shorten man's life. So let's look at the statement taken from the book Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 373. It tells us, after the flood, the people ate largely of animal food. God saw that the ways of man were corrupt and that he was disposed to exalt himself proudly against his Creator and to follow the inclinations of his own heart. He permitted that long-lived race to eat animal food to do what? To shorten their sinful lives. Soon after the flood, the race began to rapidly decrease in size and in length of years. So just prior to the flood, man, their behaviors and so forth was very corrupt. And even after, you see where the children, they sought to build that Tower of Babel, again, showing that not much had changed. And they wanted to take control of their destiny, of this earth, going against God's commands. God knew that such would happen, and so the lifespan was shortened, it was reduced, and the size of these individuals was also reduced. Let's have a look. In the Bible, in Genesis, we're told of a genealogy coming down from Adam, and Adam begat Seth, and Seth begat Enos. And when you look at the lifespan of these individuals, they range like in the 900s. So Adam, he was 930. You have Methuselah, who was the oldest person. He lived to 969 years. And this marker here indicates when the flood hit. And after the flood, you see the lifespan of man just started to dwindle, go down, down, down. And according to this diagram, you can see that the lifespan, it was reduced by 2/3. Very much looking at these numbers and these individuals' lifespan here. And you can go ahead and read that in Genesis. And today it is less than 1/10 of the original lifespan of man. So by the time of David, he was talking about the lifespan of man to be 70. And if by reason of strength we live on a little, and we quite celebrate those individuals who live to be 100 years and thereabout. But the lifespan now it's like 70 and even less. We find that a lot of young people are dying from disease and sickness that hits them, and so the lifespan has drastically reduced. But notice that after the introduction of flesh food, size reduced, lifespan reduced, and it continues on even today to be manifested as such. However, if it is that you do remove flesh food from your diet, your stature could be, robust. I'm not going to challenge the height here, but you have a robust stature, and then your lifespan can be lengthened, within reasonable, given the time and the degeneration of the earth, the times in which we live. The days of our years are here, Psalms 90:10. The days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. The liability to take disease is increased tenfold by meat eating. That's a statement made there. The liability to take disease is increased how many times? Tenfold by meat eating. So a question comes up. Are you eating flesh food right now? So I would ask the question, are you following the biblical principle for eating flesh? And that biblical principle that talks about to eat flesh without the blood and without the fat. And if it is that you're eating flesh, clean animals, where the animals was not strangled and the blood was drained, then you could say, well, yes, that you are eating it. But if it is that you cannot give an affirmative yes, that the animal was not strangled and that the blood was, you're not sure whether the blood was drained or not, then you may very well be eating flesh food that is unclean. And a lot of times you find if it is that you purchase meat, flesh foods on the outside, you're not sure the state of that meat and how much care was extended to making sure that these principles are adhered to. Genesis 9:4 says, "But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat." So when it has the blood within it, you shall not eat. The meat is served reeking with fat because it suits the perverted taste. Both the blood and the fat of animals is consumed as a luxury, but the Lord has given special directions that these should not be eaten. And so, there's some dishes that incorporate the blood of the animal. For those who want to be trainers, who want to be teachers, who want to be medical missionaries, you cannot eat flesh foods and teach. You've got to practice what you preach. And as we continue to do some more studies, you would see the importance, amplified of the need to stay away from a flesh diet. And we're saying flesh, the Bible talks about it as flesh. Lots of times when we ask, are you eating meat? Individuals would say, no, I'm not eating meat. So we're very cautious to make sure that we say, are you eating flesh? And it sounds kind of strange to our, the way we speak today, but that is just to make sure that we incorporate all flesh food and their byproducts. And so, people would say, I don't eat meat, but I eat fish. And they would not tell you that right away until you go drilling down into questioning, and then you realize that they're eating fish. And fish has a major impact negatively on our health. So by asking and checking to see whether one eats flesh, it incorporates the meat, the chicken, the turkey, the crab, lobster, conch, any of the animal foods and their byproducts. So for our teachers and our trainers, this is one of the criteria. You should not be eating these foods and yet be teaching, because it does not promote health. You see that it brings on disease how many times? 10-fold times. It is as truly a sin to violate the laws of our being as it is to break the 10 commandments. To do either is to break God's laws. Those who trespass the law of God in their physical organism will be inclined to do what? To violate the law of God spoken from Sinai. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. James 4:17. If we're violating the laws of health, the laws of our being, it is easy for us to violate the 10 Commandment laws, because you're not accustomed being obedient in that which you have to deny yourself of certain things that you may be accustomed to. So when it comes to the 10 Commandment laws, where self-denial is needed there again, it can be very difficult for us to conform. And there's so many times if it is that you have some important decision to make and you're eating the flesh foods, what does it do to your brain and to your behaviors and to your, your feeling and sense of well-being? So many times individuals would say to us, when I stop eating the flesh food, I feel great, I feel lighter, I feel myself again. There are things I can do now that I could not have done for years when I ate the flesh foods. So in terms of obeying God's laws and his guidance is given to us, you cannot be eating the flesh foods and be successful in that area. And, it is actually a sin to violate this body that God has given to us. And if it is that you know that certain foods are unhealthy, yet you're feeding it to God's temple, that is a violation to him. How soon after light comes should one change? Look at this statement. It says, at the time the light of health reform dawned upon us, and since that time the questions have come home every day. Am I practicing true temperance in all things? Is my diet such as will bring me in a position where I can accomplish the greatest amount of good? If we cannot answer these questions in the affirmative, we stand condemned before God, for he will hold us all responsible for the light which he has shone upon our path. The time of ignorance God winked at, but as fast as light shines upon us, he requires us to change our health-destroying habits and place ourselves in a right relation to physical laws. So as fast as light shines, we are expected to make the changes. And you learn, put your changes, make those changes and put it into practice so that you begin to receive that transformation within your life, that reformation within your life. Trainers, I repeat, trainers need to change immediately. Let it be your goal. Don't think that you would put it off and in the month of June, I'm going to get started. In the month of August, I'm going to get started. You need to make that change now. And don't procrastinate either, because it's Satan's way of keeping us in that point of procrastination. And he would definitely not assist you in overcoming. So you need to seek God's help and take that bold step and make the change. Question: how does flesh eating contribute to disease? Animals are diseased today. In fact, they're more diseased as we draw closer to the end of time. The body cannot make good flesh and good blood from meat eating. When you consume that, it's going to be absorbed, broken down, and so substances and what it has to offer is going to be absorbed within your bloodstream, and that does not make good blood. Good blood, which is necessary for service in every organ of your body, and even for our minds to think and so forth. Meat eating is stimulating to the body, so it have you in an anxious state. In it contains hypoxanthine. It causes it to be addictive, especially the aged meat. If you stopped immediately, one may feel feverish for a week. However, give it a while and you would be fine. So what are some examples of aged meat? Saltfish. A lot of folks love saltfish. What about tuna in the can? You see these canned fish foods, mackerel, tuna, and so forth, and there's an expiry date on it. There's a long shelf life from the time the fish died to the time it's eaten, like in 3 years and so forth. That's a long time to be eating and feeding on a dead substance. So, it's not health and it's not life that you're eating. You need to eat live food in order to sustain life. So not feast on these aged and dead foods. So looking at the aged fish and the aged meat, steaks and so forth, they are addictive. And the more aged they are, the more addictive they are. And that's why it's difficult for some individuals to leave these things off, because from the time they stop, they start to feel weak. And they say, this diet is not for me. And I'm just not doing well. I don't feel myself. Something is terribly wrong. Not understanding that it is addictive. And just like any drug, you will get withdrawal symptoms. So hold out for a while and soon your body would readjust, not being used to the stimulating kind of reaction again, and you'll all calm down. This also reminds me of some time ago I was speaking to someone who had her diet changed into a plant-based diet, and she said to me, why is it that I sleep so soundly and it's easy for me to fall asleep? And I said, well, because you're not, one of the reasons is that you're not using and eating all these stimulating foods. So as you move away from these stimulating foods, and rather you eat the calm, nice vegetables and fruits and so forth, those, especially like the beans, they have a calm effect on our nerves. So individuals with mental health issues, if you eat like your beans, it produces tryptophan that helps to keep you calm and stable. So once you're eating these foods, it's easy for you to, fall to sleep really quick and without any problems because you're not using stimulating foods again in your drinks or in substances and items that you eat. Again and again, I have been shown that God is trying to lead us back step by step to his original design that man should subsist upon the natural products of the earth. Counsels and Diets, page 380, and it continues to say, vegetables, fruits, and grains should compose our diet. Not an ounce of flesh meat should enter our stomachs. The eating of flesh is unnatural. We are to return to God's original purpose in the creation of man. So God is leading us back to his original design step by step. We're here on this earth journeying through only for a short time. This is our testing time. How close do you want and to be to reflect our Savior and his lifestyle and the nature and culture and habits of heaven? In heaven, no animal will be killed to go on a plate. No beast would be there, butchered to make a feast. In fact, we'd just be feasting more on the fruits and the vegetables, grapes and almonds and pomegranates and all of these lovely fruits, but not the flesh food. So if you're planning to go to heaven, practice here. If you have a big exam to do, you study, and as you study, you put it into practice. If you have a driving exam, you don't wait till the day to actually incorporate all that you've learned. All along, the weeks along, you are putting into practice as you learn all the hand signals, you read your book, you see all the guidance there, and you practice them. So by the time you come for your driving test, you're able to pass it with flying colors because these things are natural to you. We're on our way to heaven. Let us therefore fasten our lives closer to Christ and removed from this world. Flesh food is a worldly diet. Let us have a heavenly diet, that of the fruits, grains, nuts, and we see about the vegetables. So grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods, prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible, are the most helpful and nourishing. They impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. Those who eat flesh are but eating grains and vegetables at second hand, for the animal receives from these things the nutrition that produces growth. The life that was in the grains and vegetables passes to the eater. We receive it by eating the flesh of the animal. How much better to get it directly by eating the food that God provided for our use. So to use the animals as food, it's secondary. It's getting that nutrition second hand. So let's go for a brand new upfront vehicle, not a second hand, but get those foods first hand, and it would do way more for us than if we were to take it from the animal source. Do you eat any dairy products or eggs? So you're looking at the dairy, the milk, the cheese, the yogurt, butter, and so forth. Why is it not safe for dairy products to be eaten now? Animals are more diseased now than before. you have hormones placed within them, antibiotics and other chemicals injected into the animals, and they're passed on in their flesh and byproducts. So the milk, cheese, butter, ice cream, cakes, etc. carries these hormones in them, and the antibiotics that were fed to the animals, it lingers long, it's in their tissue, it's in their milk, and that when prepared as food passes on to the human eater. This is so evident as you see individuals becoming resistant even to antibiotics today. And it's because their body is so accustomed to getting the antibiotics in the foods. You also find that hormones are disrupted in people, especially our women. It's shown so significantly by disruption of hormones. And so women have extended large breasts from, the hormones that's placed within chickens, because everybody who goes to the counter wants the breast. They want the thigh. And what areas do you see enlarged with our women who are eating the fried chicken from certain chain food links stores? It's the breast that's enlarged and the thighs that's enlarged. It's because of what they're getting from eating that the chicken, and that can trigger and switch on so quickly in a rapid short space of time. You can see someone small framed just blow up and in a short few months, and they look like a totally big matured woman, whereas before they were not, once they go on to these foods. So getting the hormones disrupted again creates a host of problems for our women, including fibroids, endometriosis, fibrocystic breast cancers, and so forth. Not only the women, but the men. Infertility can step in, prostate gland enlargement, and so forth can step in. And so these foods actually hurt us, not help us. Now, do you eat refined white products, such as white rice, white flour? When it comes to disease reversal, we would encourage individuals to take out the white processed foods from their diet. This converts to sugar and raises sugar level quickly. So especially for our diabetics, they would attest to this, whereas the fiber in the whole grain could control the sugar levels and keep it at low. However, we've also seen now that the wheat products tend, because if it's not organic wheat, it could cause problems even with elevated blood sugar levels. So wheat can also cause the small LDL particles to be increased, therefore putting the person at risk for high blood cholesterol, and even for high blood sugar. You find some problems there. But then there are other grains, whole grains that can be eaten that's outside of wheat. And so if you prepare them well, then you're able to tolerate it and get fiber from these things. You have millet, buckwheat, and so forth that you can eat with good success. Now, looking a little bit on the grain has three parts: the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. When gluten is eaten, as in some of these wheat flour products, gluten actually gives nothing to the body. So it's something that doesn't add any value to the body. And there are individuals who like to wash the flour and get the, this substance, protein, gluten, and then they season it all up and they say, okay, we have a little mockfish, gluten, and so forth. They make it taste, sort of meat-like. But that is so stripped of nutrients that the body takes nothing. And there's been tests done where, gluten goes in, comes out, everything comes out, nothing was removed from it by the body. So it doesn't add health, it doesn't add any value, So that gluten veggie kind of food is one thing that doesn't add any value to the diet and to the food. But also gluten substance in itself is what gives flour and wheat flour that glue-like, paste-like substance and finish. So as little kids, you may remember that you could take some flour, mix it with water, and then you put it on to stick your kite or stick pictures in your schoolbook as a glue. And so that's what gluten does. And we find today, because wheat has been changed up so much, that this gluten within the wheat food is causing a lot of problems for individuals. However, grains on a whole, grains used for porridge or mush should have several hours of cooking, and all grains should be cooked for at least 3 hours, and this is required to break down what? The phytic acid within the bran, which if not destroyed prevents the absorption of copper, zinc, calcium, iron, magnesium, and interferes with the enzymes for digesting protein and starches. So basically, your grains, you're looking at like corn, oats, millet, sorghum, teff, those grains, and your rice needs to be cooked for at least 3 hours. However, other grains such as buckwheat, quinoa, and amaranth, those three, they're more seed-like structures, and they do not require the 3 hours of cooking. You simply cook them until they come in fluffy and nice, and then you could enjoy it. So old-fashioned rolled oats should be cooked slowly for at least 3 hours to make sure that the starch is broken down in this grain. A study of people over age 30 found out that there were lesions on the brain caused by undercooked starches. So if the concept about taking a handful of oats raw as from the packet and dropping it within your blender to make a smoothie, that the high starch content in it can cause lesions on the brain. And this can lead to seizures or mini strokes. However, if it is that you took your bag of oats and you pour it out, throw it out onto a baking dish, and then you put on your oven a low heat, like 170 degrees, you would be able to have that low heat on for 3 hours. Every 30 minutes you take a long spoon and you turn that oats. And same thing for your rice. You can toast your rice, you can toast your barley, your millet, grains, and cornmeal, and so forth. You can toast these items ahead of time for the 3 hours, so that when you're ready to cook them, and then you repackage it. And when you're ready to cook them now, you cook them within a normal short frame time as they come in nicely, and you'd be fine. Doing this will help you to hold on to your nutrients rather than lose them, because if they're not cooked properly, they will rob the body of these minerals, zinc, calcium, iron, magnesium, copper, and give us digestive problems for digesting protein and starches. How many servings of fruits and vegetables per day? This is a question that we can ask individuals. And what is an optimal amount of servings per day that one should have? So ideally, I found that people do not eat fruits and vegetables in an adequate amount. You may take like, say you want to have fruits and you might just have 1 banana or 1 apple, a banana and an apple. Okay, good, you're having fruit, but that's not enough. And, or I'm having cucumbers and you cut half of a cucumber to eat. That's not enough. We need to eat enough fruit. We need to eat enough vegetables. And so, aim for 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. So when you consider what is the serving size, think about the palm of your hand, and that is an estimated serving size. So an orange fit in the palm of your hand would be 1 serving. A golden apple, custard apple, you have a banana that's pretty lengthy. If your hand can wrap the banana once, twice, side by side, your hand can go over that length, then that's 2 servings. So to have 3 to 5, so you can actually have like 2 bananas and an orange, or 2 bananas and an apple. Or if you have pawpaw, you cut a good size amount, or watermelon, you have a good size amount, a plate of watermelon, or some good slices there. If you're having cucumbers, eat 1 whole cucumber or 2, depending if it's a small size. Tomatoes, you can have 3 tomatoes and eat that at the start of your meal. When you do this, you ensure that you're having enough of those live foods that gives you life and that energizes you, that would also provide enzymes for digesting the particular food, and for more, that enzymes that can be utilized for digesting the other parts of your meal. So one of the councils says that eat fruit at one meal and vegetables at another. Do not mix your fruits and your vegetables at the same meal. And a fruit, Genesis 1:11, is that which has the seed within itself. So you have tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplant, seeds are on the inside. They are considered fruit. They should not be mixed with your cabbage, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your kale, your lettuce, these other vegetables don't have seeds on the inside. Keep that for one meal, and then your fruits at another meal. Mixing fruits and vegetables at the same meal causes fermentation in the stomach. There should not be a variety at one meal, for this encourages overeating and causes indigestion. Fruits and vegetables taken at one meal produces acidity of the stomach, then impurity of the blood results, and the mind is not clear because the digestion is imperfect. So acidity in the stomach, and you're complaining about burning stomach, acid reflux, check, are you eating your fruits and vegetables together within your mealtime, for breakfast, for lunch? Is it that I have impure blood and, I have things on my skin, or, that's manifested in some other form? If your mind is not clear to think straight, make proper decisions, or if it is that you think you have a confused brain and mind, check the digestion, for the behaviors and so forth. Look at the digestion and see what changes need to be given there. Do you use condiments? What about ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, barbecue sauces, and so forth? Vinegar. Vinegar in these items, so if you read your label for ketchup, you would see vinegar within there. Your label for mustard or mayonnaise, vinegar is part of those ingredients, among other things. So one of we don't use vinegar, not even apple cider vinegar, because for a couple reasons. Vinegar in the food item ferments. It's fermented. Vinegar is actually fermented alcohol. It poisons the blood and makes it impure. That's one. When sugar and vinegar is combined, as in ketchup, it can lead to impure thoughts. It can lead to leukemia, which is cancer of the blood. Vinegar also depletes calcium phosphate from bones and teeth, thus weakening them. So the vinegar that's found within the condiments can do this to your body. The vinegar that one might ingest, as in apple cider vinegar, can do that to the body. Vinegar in any form, it would deplete the calcium phosphate from your bones and from your teeth and cause brittle bones, weakened bones, bone-related sickness and diseases. So vinegar also causes iron deficiency, so one can be anemic if you're using these condiments. So rather, let's leave it alone. Now, another question, do you add any of the following spices to your food, such as cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, curry, hot sauces, cayenne pepper, black and white peppers, etc.? So avoid all spices. Ginger, especially if you have high blood pressure, ginger will elevate that blood pressure, so avoid using that. Morphine irritates the stomach, and all energy drinks will also be very stimulating, increases the heart rate, and we want to stay away from all energy drinks. That's the Red Bull, the Monster, the Magnums, in different forms. And some individuals take like energy tonics. Look at the ingredients. If it has caffeine in it, it will stimulate you and cause problems. Curry is another item that should be avoided in our diet. Now, in curry, if you looked at the ingredients in curry, a lot of those packages out there would say it contains turmeric, fenugreek, mangrel, cumin, and then you might see spices or peppers or chili, and that's the curry that you don't want. So those, because of the spices, the peppers, the chilies, these things in them, and there are different kinds of curries in the market. There's curry for fish, curry for duck, curry for goat, and the pepper within it just increases in a wide range of this. So at one point, I actually did a survey with individuals who were long eaters of curry to see what their status was. Did the curry affect you? Was it helpful to you in your diet? And every one of them that I interviewed who used curry from childhood come up, they were now adults and they did have stomach-related problems. One young lady said, it caused an ulcer she had an ulcer in her stomach, and she would cook curry for the family, and so she would eat it, but it burns her stomach every time. Another gentleman said he can't have a pinch of curry because it will burn his stomach tremendously, causing diarrhea and so forth. And in doing that study, then I recognized the intensity of the pepper within the varied kinds of curries. So, however, there's a recipe for curry that you can make your own. Basically, you would use the turmeric to give that yellow color, and then a couple basic herbal seasonings, but without adding any pepper to that. There are, in some countries, available curry that's plain, mild and simple, without any pepper within it, without any spices or chilies, and those you may find that would be safer to use, that when you use them, you would not get this adverse reaction in the stomach. Nutmeg, mace, cinnamon, and cloves. Nutmeg actually has a toxic amyloid within it that it gives a high to individuals, and it's toxic to the body. Mace is another thing that in some countries, like in Colombia, they would use that to get a high, just like a drug, like marijuana or cocaine or something. it affects the brain. And by using these items, cinnamon is another that individuals use to get a high. Why do you think that if you were to use these items in your baking, that you would use a little bit, a little pinch? Is because if you took a large tablespoon, that would knock you out flat. And so, people would use just a little bit in it. It's not good. It's toxic to the body. It's toxic to your liver, to your kidneys, for your blood, and the body would want to get rid of it. So it would derange the normal behaviors of your nervous system, of your brain, the way your brain would think and work, your balance and everything. So these items, leave them alone. Temperance, even in our food, total abstinence from that which is hurtful. Moderate use in the good. So if these things have the potential to cause harm to us, don't use it in your diet. Don't use it within your cooking in your food, because that whole food, instead of adding and building up your body, is actually breaking it down. Spices at first irritate the tender coating of the stomach, but finally destroy the natural sensitiveness of this delicate membrane. Now, when it comes even to the nutmeg, you find that individuals would use it with great success as a medicinal value. So if for the onset of a stroke, if you took that nutmeg, and once the patient can have good control over his or her reflexes in the mouth area, you can cut like half of a nutmeg and place it to the back jaw and just leave it there, and the juices from it will secrete little bits at a time and help to put a hold on the progression of that stroke reflex and stroke reaction on the body. So all the stiffness and losing of sensitivity and so forth, it would actually stop that from progressing once it's used in that way. For some who may not have good reflexes, you might just grate a little bit and just put it to the back of the jaw there, and it would be quite helpful and successful in a stroke-related situation, but not as using these items as part of your diet. Cinnamon is another one that would be used to lower blood sugar levels within the individuals. So imagine if you're healthy already, it is going to lower your blood sugar level too. These things are not selective to say, well, sugar level good, I'm not going to disrupt. They're coming in, and they have their effect on the blood, effect on the body. So cinnamon, while diabetics may use it to lower the blood sugar levels, it is not the only item that can be used with success. As a matter of fact, there's a whole lot more that you would need to do in order to reverse your diabetes, and rather than taking the cinnamon. So our take is, because you wouldn't really see us recommending it in reversing diabetes, is that because there are lots of other items that can be used, and in addition, you need to be looking at other factors such as your exercise, your water intake, your rest times, and a lot of other factors in order to reverse your diabetes. So most spices, okay, so here we have it, can be used for medicinal purpose. And even here comes the vinegar again. If it is that you do have a fungus on your feet, for example, you can fill a basin with vinegar, add a little water, but or use it straight, that vinegar, and a little water, and for those who may have sensitive skin. But you soak your feet with that fungus in the vinegar water. And what happens is that it would help to kill that fungus, germ, and get rid of it. So as you do that, day one, you soak your feet. You don't need to throw away that vinegar. Keep it there in the bowl for day two, and you come back and you put your feet in there again because it's clean stuff, and it's not that you need to throw that water out. So these things, again, used for medicinal purpose. When spices are used as part of the regular diet, they can also elevate the blood pressure, irritate the stomach. Even when it comes to the peppers and the chilies and cayenne pepper and so forth, they cause reddening to the stomach. They increase gastric secretions, especially the cinnamon. It increases gastric secretions. And the peppers tend to also cause the stomach to bleed, such as like even the cayenne pepper. It can have that effect on the stomach, causing it to bleed, and you can be iron deficient because of the blood loss. So these spices also contribute to cancers, like stomach cancer, ulcers. Once you're irritating the mucosal lining of your stomach, you're tearing that down and away and exposing the wall of your stomach, to the hydrochloric acid and so forth. So your stomach will actually be burning you. And, that just opens up the door for an ulcer to be formed for stomach cancers and other irritating diseases. All hot peppers, including but not limited to chilies, peppers, black and white pepper, cayenne pepper, Scotch bonnet, bird pepper, hot pepper, sauces, and so forth, as they are related to cancer of the stomach and hypertension, we need to avoid them. They are also stimulants and should be avoided. So you see nutmeg here having a toxic alkaloid called mitricin, whose narcotic or drug effect depresses the central nervous system. However, we use it in parts of stroke reversal program. So you may be wondering, what can I use to season my food? Instead of the curry with the chili spices and so forth, look for a curry that doesn't have those ingredients in it, or make your own curry. Instead of cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove, let us use like turmeric, fenugreek. You can use coriander, cardamom, bay leaf, oregano, thyme, sage, basil. These leafy herbal agents that would give benefits to the body, as well as give taste to your food if you want to use these things. I recognize too that individuals, as they change from a flesh food diet to a plant diet, they may be so accustomed to using high seasoning, chive, celery, parsley, and so forth, using a lot of seasonings on their meat, on that chicken to season, on that fish to season it to give it taste. Because the flesh food in and of itself, that dead flesh food, has no taste. You boil a piece of chicken, plain as it is, and try to eat it. It's tasteless. Same thing too with the fish. It might even be fresh. So as you move away from that, and you come to cooking your beans and so forth, I've recognized individuals bring across all of those seasonings into their beans because they want and looking for that taste. But understand that in the plant-based foods, they have a natural taste. So you don't need to add all of these seasonings to that food as you would try to season down a flesh food item. Don't season down your bean. You're killing the natural taste from it. And they do have a natural taste, and that your taste buds will need to be converted. It's now perverted, and it needs to change, but allow it to change, if you have the food less seasoned. When you eat your food and there's less seasoning on it, even your breath after eating has no food smell. The taste within your mouth, there is no food taste. So even if you didn't get to brush your teeth right after, there's no foodie taste within your mouth because you didn't have all these high seasonings within it. It was quite simple and natural, adding your garlic or your onions and your sea salt, natural, simple items rather than these pungent aromas and flavors. So your taste buds would need to change, and it will after a while. But try, these are just some options for the transition, but you don't really need to add all of these seasonings to your food. Do you eat fried foods? And what does frying vegetable oils do for the molecular structure? Vegetable oils, when heated, breaks down its molecular structure and so loses its value. So there's another statement coming up on oils. So do you use margarine or butter? What is the problem with these foods? So margarine or butter is saturated fat, which the body cannot digest, and undigested fat passes out or stores as fat in the body. It is an animal product and so contains cholesterol. Getting your margarine and your butter. In fact, margarine is, we're told, it's just like a molecule away from being a plastic. Once you take this oil and you harden it, solidify it, you're gonna have problems. It's going to, stick within the walls of your arteries. Butter, coming from the animal source, causes cholesterol to jump by 20% in a few hours after use. Understanding too that in order for just simply having elevated cholesterol levels, one, apart from its dairy content, you also have your liver that recognizes the fat within that butter, and so your liver will produce more cholesterol in order to make bile and bile salts that's necessary for degreasing that fat within your food, for breaking down, for digesting that fat within the butter. And so automatically you're causing your liver to be producing more cholesterol than what the body would normally need. What about baking powder or baking soda? And what will these two items do? Now, baking powder and baking soda actually increases the pH level in the stomach and causes it to be high in alkaline. So pH is all about the acid-alkaline balance. And a high pH prevents the stomach from becoming acidic enough to break down plant-based or animal-based protein. So the use of baking soda or baking powder in bread making is harmful and unnecessary. Soda causes inflammation of the stomach and often poisons the entire system. So if you're adding this to a dough to make bake or roti or something, some pastry bun, you're adding baking powder, baking soda, understand that it's increasing inflammation within your stomach, and that's going to be processed along with the food. It's going to be poison to the body. It's toxic to the body, and the body will just need to get rid of it. You're overworking your organs, but you're also exposing these things to run in and through your blood and can cause problems in your body. So instead of sodium bicarbonate, there's calcium bicarbonate. There's calcium carbonate, which it's in a natural product called energy, and the main ingredient in there is calcium carbonate, and so that does not have the negative effect as the sodium bicarbonate. Some other factors, even with the sodium bicarbonate, it's what? Sodium, so it's high in salt and elevates blood pressure. So normal pH level in the body can be anywhere like 7.35 to 7.45. When for the stomach now, that stomach needs to be less alkaline and more acidic. So the stomach deals with acidity. So you have hydrochloric acid that comes anywhere like 30 to 60 minutes after you've eaten your food. So that hydrochloric acid comes up about that time. But in order for it to be produced and increased, if you had a baking powder or baking soda ingredient within your bake, within your roti, within a bun or a pie or so that you made, you would keep and have your stomach more alkaline when you need it to be acidic, because the food now, if you had beans with their food, or for those on the flesh food items, if you had a chicken or fish with that food, or that carbohydrate food that had baking powder, baking soda in it, the stomach does not get to be acidic enough in order to digest that protein. So for breaking down plant-based protein, stomach needs to be acidic down to the level of 3.35, and so even the stomach needs to be more acidic, more like 1.35 to break down animal-based protein. So the more animal-based protein you eat, the more acidity you need within the stomach. If the pH level remains high in the stomach due to baking powder use or alkaline water and so forth, it makes it difficult for proteins to be digested. And too much protein in the stomach would affect the kidneys, and it can affect your eyes as well. Do you eat fresh bread, and why is fresh bread not good for you to eat? The yeast in the fresh bread is still alive within 48 hours. And this can cause bloating of the stomach. It can also increase the incidence of candida within the body because the yeast germ continues to be alive if you eat that fresh bread. So you want individuals not to eat fresh hot bread. Leave it alone. Let 2 to 3 days pass, and then you can eat it. Heat it up, make it fresh and warm as new. But by eating it when it's freshly made, the yeast germ is still alive, and it will cause problems within the body. Bread should be light and sweet, not the least taint of sourness should be tolerated. The loaf should be small and so thoroughly baked that as far as possible the yeast germ shall be destroyed. When hot or new raised bread of any kind is difficult of digestion, it should never appear on the table. This rule does not, however, apply to unleavened bread. So fresh rolls made of wheaten meal without yeast or leavening of any kind. So even if you use the calcium carbonate baking powder as a leavening agent, you don't want to eat your food with any leavening agent in it when it's newly baked. So if it's made without wheaten meal or yeast or leavening and baked in a well-heated oven, you'd find that it's wholesome and palatable. There are some societies that would have like sourdough bread. Sourdough bread is not recommended. It's a fermented item that you're adding to the dough to make it give a yield, a rise, and that is poisonous to the body. So we don't want to add even sourdough bread to our diet. Do you eat any cocoa, chocolate, or ice cream? So cocoa has a substance called theobromine in the cocoa bean, and it's cousin to coffee, and so it has a caffeine-like effect on the body from this cocoa, the substance within the bean. And it is the bean that's broken down and processed to make chocolate, so or cocoa powder. So chocolate contains theobromine, this caffeine-like substance that gives a high, glorious feeling and then an all-time low. It can be very depressing. It can also increase insomnia in individuals. it can stimulate the nervous system, and it causes stomach irritation. So do you eat any cocoa, chocolate, or ice cream? If you are using chocolate, know that it will elevate your blood pressure. It can restrict the blood vessels in the body, and even especially the blood vessels to your brain. So you're having problems thinking straight, concentrating and so forth. Drinking hot cocoa tea, that's the culprit right there. Stop drinking it and allow your brain, your blood vessels to be expanded, bringing blood to your brain so that you can have your brain energized and be useful to you. So don't restrict those blood vessels, even the blood vessels to our heart and other portions of the body. If you're getting numbness, take out the chocolate. It can also deplete calcium and irritates the kidneys, as well as it's an irritant to the bladder, and kidneys and bladder difficulties can appear. It is also addictive. Now, when it comes to ice cream, the whole thing is it's just the wrong temperature. And ice cream is at a freezing point of 32 degrees, but the body is warm, like about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, thereabouts. And so the stomach needs to heat up this cold item before it can digest it. But then at the same time too, you have this large amount of sugar and milk combined that can be problematic for good health within the body. So meanwhile, while the ice cream needs to be warmed up to body temperature before the body can actually process and deal with it for digestion, it's staying there on the stomach for quite a while. It can cause fermentation and bad blood. Food should not be eaten very hot or very cold. If food is cold, the vital force of the stomach is drawn upon in order to warm it before digestion can take place. Cold drinks are injurious for the same reason, while the free use of hot drinks is debilitating. Large quantities of milk and sugar eaten together are injurious. They impart impurities to the system. Animals from which milk is obtained are not always healthy. They may be diseased. For example, a cow may be apparently well in the morning, and you milk her, and die before night. Then she was actually diseased in the morning, and her milk was diseased, but you did not know it. And so the animal creation is diseased. Flesh meats are diseased. Could we know that animals were in perfect health? I would recommend that people eat flesh meat sooner than large quantities of milk and sugar, because it's so harmful to the body. Especially harmful are the custards and puddings in which milk, eggs, and sugar are the chief ingredients. The free use of milk and sugar taken together should be avoided. Here we look a little bit at oils and which oils do you cook with and what's the best oil to cook with and why. So in the book Encyclopedia of Foods and Their Healing Power, Volume 1, page 113, and it goes on all the way to 112. It deals extensively on the topic of oils and different kinds of oils and the pros and cons in them. It tells us there that olive oil is the king of all oils. So olive oil is the king of all the oils, and it is most stable under high temperatures, even that of frying. So when it comes to the oils, and once you start to fry them, you see they break down easily. But olive oil stands out well, even under high temperatures. So if you were to choose an oil, it will be olive oil. Canola oil comes from the GMO rapeseed plant, a genetically modified rapeseed plant. It has a fatty acid known as erucic acid that is toxic to the coronary artery system. but this toxic element is removed in the refining process before it's served. So it is an oil that has a history of toxicity when at one point it was used within industries, and in the 1980s in Spain, at the particular factory, they looked to remove the dye from the rapeseed plant oil, and in removing that and mixing it with some other chemicals, they formulated an oil that they put out in the market for human consumption. It turned out that those who handled the oil and who ingested it, they fell sick. So about 2,000 people died, and over 20,000 had disabilities because of the effect that it gave. So the rapeseed oil, it actually has a bad reputation in the past. It has been renamed to what we know it now to be canola oil, but a lot of individuals would look to use rapeseed, but it's not one of the best oils to use. Do you read your labels of food items that you buy from the store? When someone puts a yes, what does that actually tell you? If someone is reading their labels, it shows that they have a keen interest in what they put within their body. So they are making selections, they're making choices, looking at their options, and that's a good sign that they are interested in their health. List any sweeteners that you consume. And so people may have like sugar, condensed milk, those are sweeteners. And some recommended natural sweeteners will be like honey, maple syrup, agave nectar, dates, raisins, molasses, banana, cane juice, 100% apple juice, apple sauce. Those are natural sweeteners that you can use. Natural sweeteners have several nutrients in them, as well as fiber. If you took a ripe banana and you use this as a natural sweetener, it has fiber within it. Unlike the crystallized sugar, which strips of nutrients and actually causes decay, and there's no value in it except that it's sweet. And when it comes to artificial sweeteners, those are items that we don't want to use, the artificial sweeteners. Stay away from them, like the Equal, Splendor, and NutraSweet, and so forth. Those things are chemicals, and they are toxic to the body. They're toxic to the brain. So we don't want to be using any of those artificial sweeteners. How often do you eat nuts? And why are nuts important to the diet, and what part can they play in preventing heart disease? Nuts is part of our original diet chosen for us by our Creator. And there are several ingredients to be gained by use of nuts and seeds. It is important to have nuts as a fat item with our meal, and at the end of our meal, if you had like a handful of nuts, pecans, cashews, walnuts, almonds, or you had seeds like pumpkin seeds, a handful of sunflower seeds that would give you energy and so forth, great magnesium there. You are able to have that fat at the end of your meal, which is a good time to have it. So when you eat the fat at the end of your meal, it takes longer to digest, and so it will sustain you until your next meal time comes. You would not feel hungry in between your meal, and it makes a big difference. So plan for it, get your nuts, and you're using a handful, closed handful, at the end of your meal. There is an Adventist Health Study, one that shows eating nuts at least 5 times a week, not 5 times a day, but 5 times a week, reduce the risk of heart attack by 50%, by half. So, individuals who ate nuts at least every week, at least 5 times, their risk of heart disease, heart attack was cut by half. Again, caution needs to be extended with the nuts. Don't eat too much of it and overeat. Do you eat any canned items? If, say, for example, someone has hypertension and they're using a lot of canned items, what would you say? Within these canned items, you have spices, you have the condiments, you have salt, sodium, and that can elevate the blood pressure. So there may be sugar in it, there could be vinegar in it. All those things are stimulants, and they can elevate the blood pressure. Recognize too that the more stimulants you have within your diet, it's harder for you to break off the habits of drinking alcohol or smoking tobacco or any form of smoke. So by cleaning up your diet, it helps you to move away from these stimulating foods, and so by extension, those habits that are unhealthy. A question that comes up is, are you on a special diet? And why would diets not work? Lots of times people would say, I'm going on the raw diet. I'm going on a low carbohydrate diet, to lose weight. But you may lose the weight. But then if it is that you think that you deprived yourself so much that you come back to eat with a vengeance, you're going to put it right back on. And that's the problem. And there may be times when individuals are on a diet and it's not done, the form of the diet is not in the right way. So you could be lacking nutrients for quite a while. We don't promote going on a diet. It is a lifestyle change. It is a dietary change, one that is wholesome, healthy. You will lose the weight without losing the plate. But you're able to make it part of your life. So we don't want individuals to be on a diet, but rather, make these dietary changes and make it their new lifestyle and their new eating habits. Question, do you eat out? Why is it important to stay away from eating out? Now that individuals understand the benefits of having healthy food and what are some of the condiments and so forth that they need to stay away from, the seasonings they need to stay away from, it can be pretty challenging to eat foods on the outside. And so, it can have certain ingredients in them that you don't want to consume. So you would find that individuals would limit their eating out and rather cook your meals. A lot of times I see individuals who are unwell and come to us for help, for consulting. Lots of times they don't cook their meals. They purchase food. And so as you've seen, some of these foods, the ingredients that's placed within them can make you sick and can disturb the stomach, irritate it, and so forth. And rather, you need to prepare your meals so that you have wholesome, healthy food. And it's cheaper. It may take a little time and attention, but you need to stop and make that time to take care of you. If you don't do it now and ahead in terms of prevention, you will have to do it later on when you are unwell, when you're forced to do it, because the disturbance is so great that you say, no, I have to make these changes, but your body is now weakened and you may not be able to do for yourself and have to rely on others to do for you, which you may not like. So think ahead and work on prevention. Question, do you use salt? If someone you're consulting does not believe in using salt, what would you say to them? Salt is actually essential for the blood. It's essential for all of your cells. There's homeostasis that needs to take place with saline solutions in and out of cells. Another important thing is having iodine that's naturally occurring within your salt, not iodine that's added. Those can be problematic, but iodine that occurs naturally. So the best form that we've seen so far is pink Himalayan sea salt. If someone has high blood pressure, question to them, do you use salt? They may say no, because I have high blood pressure. Then let's reason. How it is that 60% of people who do not use salt still have their high blood pressure. Salt is not the culprit here. Too much of salt, yes, but not to say to eliminate salt from your diet entirely. That can cause problems. Even thyroid-related issues, especially if the salt had iodine in it and you refrain from using it. So at one time, Dr. Blanc tried to teach our family to cook according to health reform as he viewed it, without salt or anything else to season the food. Well, I determined to try it, but I became so reduced in strength that I had to make a change, and a different policy was entered upon with great success. I tell you this because I know that you are in positive danger. I use some salt and always have, because salt, instead of being deleterious, is actually essential for the blood. So you need to utilize it. Let your salt contain iodine. So the question, does salt contain iodine? We want our salt to contain iodine. It is essential for proper functioning of the thyroid gland, which regulates the metabolic rate of the human body, which gives you energy. And so the use of iodine within our sea salt or within kelp would prevent thyroid-related conditions such as hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, goiter, overweight, extreme fatigue, depression, dry skin, dry scalp and hair, and a number of other related diseases. In addition, the following items can hinders iodine from being absorbed by the thyroid gland and in your cells. And so fluoride water or toothpaste, fluorinated toothpaste, fluorinated water, that can hinder iodine from being absorbed in the body. Chlorine, cassava, corn, the cruciferous family of foods such as cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, will hinder iodine from being absorbed in the body. These foods contain a chemical called goitrin that fights against iodine, and so we want to obtain iodine from a natural sea salt or seaweed vegetables such as kelp or dulse, and that would be helpful to the body. If it is that you do have hyperthyroidism, then you find these foods of the cruciferous family, the corn, the cassava, the broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and so forth will be helpful in a hyperthyroid situation. To use them, because you actually want to suppress the body's reaction of producing too much thyroid hormone in that situation. So we would like juice the cabbage, raw cabbage, blend it up in some water if you don't able to juice them, juice it, and then you drink like about 4 ounces a day, and that would suppress the hyperthyroid situation, get it under control, and continue to work with other factors such as getting your rest, your sunlight, vitamin D, and other things, balancing your hormones and so forth in order to deal with a hyperthyroid situation. And that's it. So that's the list of questions that comes under the topic of proper diet that we would, check and seek to get from individuals, what they're doing, where they're at. The advice that was shared here is advice that would be given to individuals who want to make a change for better health. In terms of a dietary change, these are the changes that need to be made in some of the simple everyday foods that we would want, you may have been consuming, and what are some of the foods to add to your diet and the changes to make.